I will officially call the meeting to order, and I want to welcome everyone here tonight. We'd like to welcome Corey McCarthy from Channel 32, Larry Peterson from Temple City Star, and in their gallery, an esteemed employee of the town, Alexis. So welcome, and I hope that everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend, and so we want to welcome everyone here tonight. So Councillor Creed, if you've got your prayer shawl, we would invite you to do the honors, please.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be gathered together this afternoon. We're grateful for the opportunity to represent the citizens of this community. And we're grateful for this community and for the blessings that have come to this community, and for the good people who live here, and for their desires to make our community better. And we pray that as we meet this evening that we will do all that we can in our decision making to make our community better. We pray that would give our minds clarity, and that we might be wise in our deliberations this evening. And this we pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councillor. I have no additions.
I'd like to add one, Mayor.
Okay.
The status of the Mike Schaefer land purchase.
That should be in the motion unless...
We should have those kinds of discussions with administration prior to council, because you need to give administration time to get the information for us. So I'm gonna decline your motion to.
I'll go back to administration.
Administration is most welcome to give you the most recent updated information and not take council's time. Chair will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. Moved by Councillor Cronin. Any discussion on the motion to adopt the agenda? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. We have a delegation tonight, and it gives me pleasure with a smile to welcome our new MLA, Mr. Bickman, Gary Bickman. Welcome, Gary, and you are familiar to the intimate workings of local government, as you have been on council in Sterling and served as mayor of that fine community. So we'd like to welcome you to the podium, and I'm sure that all of us know Mr. Bickman, and if you haven't met him personally, I want to recommend him to you to take the time to get to know him. So Gary, welcome to our chamber.
It's an honor to be here. I appreciate taking a few minutes of your time, and I won't take much time. I'm not here so much to bring you a message in particular as I am to make you aware of the fact that I am at your service, and that I am a realist, and I know that there are things that we can promise and there are things that we can accomplish, and sometimes the difference is great. And I know that you have needs, and that all of your needs appear justified to you, and nevertheless they're part of the priorities that exist with the provincial government and those in office, and so we have to know which of your priorities are, which of your needs are your highest priorities. And as we discover that, then I, on your behalf, will certainly lobby and work with anybody in Edmonton in the government that you need me to visit with. I've already passed along the results of a discussion that you and I had, Mr. Mayor, with regard to your top infrastructure priority in your mind being the pool renovations and upgrading. And I have sent that to the Associate Minister of Finance on your behalf, and we'll be following up on that. And of course, that's just one thing. We had an opportunity to pick one, and from each of several of our communities, and that's the one that we picked for you. So I'm still learning the job of an MLA. I have good people helping me, and I appreciate them, particularly Bryce's former assistant, Angela, in Tabor, has been an absolute treasure for me and for the rest of the people in our riding, because she's so experienced. Many of the things that people want to know or need to have accomplished, we're able to have that done through her, and she's doing a great job. Mandy is new, but Angela has helped her with her training. Mandy's the young woman here in Cardston, and I appreciate her hard work and her commitment to seeing that you're well represented. Having said that, if there are any things that you would like to ask of me, or things that you think I should know, I'm here to listen.
Gary, just a couple of questions. You have office hours. Can you tell us what those are?
I don't have office hours. I come on an as-needed basis.
Okay.
I came from a meeting that we scheduled for today, because I knew I was coming to this appointment. And there were 2 meetings scheduled for today. One of them I was able to take care of when I was in Lethbridge, because the fellow was going to come from Lethbridge here, but I was there, so we took care of that.
Okay, I will give the council some question time.
I just would ask you a question. It's a little bit broad, but I would like to know, the south of Alberta has voted definitely Wild Rose, and the actual government, is obviously not of that color.
And they're making it more obvious every time they open their mouths, aren't they?
But I would like to know how efficient you think you are in representing the South in order to get things moving in the right direction for us, considering the very opposite views and maybe agendas.
That's a fair question, and it's not the first time I've been asked by councils as I've gone around visiting. I'm trying to get around to visit every council before the legislature starts, and it starts October 23rd. And yours is, in fact, the last one to visit. Well, I still have Milk River, but Terry Michaelis and I talk all the time anyway. So, yes, so in answer to that question, I think that the party, the PC party, which is the party in office governing still, I think that they care about all Albertans. I think that the government has done some things politically that have been interpreted, perhaps justly, but I won't pass comment on that, judgment on that people might think were done for political purposes, sort of to send a message to the people that voted right instead of left, if you'll let me get away with that little pun, that they aren't going to be treated fairly. But in my conversations with government ministers, was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, at the AUMA meeting, I got the distinct impression they're prepared to listen. And our message is all Albertans should be treated equally, no matter what party their particular MLA happens to belong to. That's just. The PCs have made the point of saying that Albertans have sent us a message. Well, one of the messages was your MLA wasn't representing our wishes as well as we think he could have. And so we want another MLA whose point of view, from a party whose point of view is more similar to ours with regards to important things like property rights, for example. And so I think that's why the rural part of Alberta, southern Alberta in particular, voted the way they did. That's what I found as I was knocking on doors and interacting with people. Not everybody felt that way, but some people voted based on principle, and the principles of our party appeared to match their principles. But when you vote on principle, you sometimes give up interest, if I can again use a little banking analogy. So your interests, nevertheless, are not going to be ignored. We won't let them. Why you want a strong opposition, particularly when you live in a jurisdiction where you have a legislative dictatorship. And I use that term to refer to the fact that the ruling party's MLAs are not allowed to vote in the legislature the way their constituents want. So I have no question in my mind that your previous MLA understood your needs and the needs of rural Albertans, the farmers and ranchers that were so concerned about property rights. And he argued about them in caucus. But then he was told how to vote when those bills came to the floor. Well, the nice thing about us is that we can point out examples in as effective a way as possible when certain areas or certain constituencies aren't being treated fairly and equally. So I think we can do a good job of representing you. I think I can, but I think all the other MLAs from different parties, whether it's just or mine or other opposition parties, but being part of the official opposition gives us an additional way to, I suppose, if you want to focus on examples where the tables might be tilted a bit. And the media picks up on that. And the part of the success of the governing party is that they know how to react to the media and to the media message. But we also, it's not going to be conflict. I don't want you to think that. I've already visited very briefly with the MLA or the cabinet minister from the department that I'm the shadow critic of, and that's Stephen Kahn of Enterprise and Advanced Education, and we have agreed, as new kids on the block, if you will, that we're going to sit down and talk about things so that we can consult rather than have a conflict. And I'm not going to ask questions in question period that are focused on embarrassing him so much as highlighting perhaps things that he and I have already talked about that'll get it on the record in a way that says, we want to work together. And I think that we can. And we've talked as a caucus, as Wild Rose Caucus, about the desire to raise our standards, the standard of decorum in the way that we interact, not being, so sophomoric in terms of hurling insults at one another and pounding on the desk to interrupt people, or hooting or catcalling. And we think that we'll be able to raise, at least in our own minds, the standard of behavior that's there. So we've talked about this. How can we best represent people when we're just an opposition party? And we think we've got some ideas that will work. And I really do think that we can make a very compelling case that all Albertans, that the party in power right now, or party in office, as Premier Lougheed used to prefer to refer to as, the party in office has an obligation to represent and to take information from all areas of the province equally, even if it comes from a source not within their own party. Long answer, but does that...
Thank you very much.
Okay, sure.
Appreciate that.
Councillor Smith.
You kind of touched on it a little bit there. Just what is, for the opposition party, what is the ladder there? If we bring you information, where do you go with that to make sure it gets to the right ears there?
Well, we have very good people in Edmonton working as our legislative assistants, as our researchers, and they have developed good relationships already. And that's one of Angela's strengths, and that's why Bryce recommended that I retain her in our office, is because she already knows the channels. I don't, but we have access to people who do. And so when I get when somebody brings something directly to me, even if it's somebody that calls her and she passes it through to me, I'll go back to her and say, Angela, what, in the past, how have you and Bryce dealt with these issues? So I'm not too proud to follow successful paths. I don't have to reinvent that wheel. So we have access, and we can call up the minister's offices and say, can we come and talk about this? Now what they'll do is respond directly to the constituent. They won't respond back through us the way they would have if I had been a PC, but they'll still respond to you, and you'll still get results. And we've had issues such as somebody very concerned about some actions, some negligence on the part of TELUS with regard to phone lines. And Angela knew who to call and who to talk to, and she got the result. And that man called back. There's a farmer south of Warner. He said, thank you. They were here the next day. So
Councillor Creed.
Oh, okay. Gary, on my email just recently, I was forwarded a message that has to do with the government is seeking input into their upcoming budget and, welcoming comments. And I just wondered if you could comment on how we individually or as a town, as a council, might most effectively use that option. Have you got any thoughts on how we might do that?
Well, I think that anytime the party in office asks for input, we should make sure that we provide it to them in as logical and as reasoned a way. We can speak passionately, but we want our logic to be so strong that they really are going to have a hard time ignoring what we're presenting. So individually, yes. Collectively as a council, absolutely. From administration to follow up, to give you more facts or substantiate what it is that you're asking for, or to justify the input that you're providing, for sure. Copy me on it, then I know what's going on too. I'm in the loop. And then because I am going to be in Edmonton for 6 straight weeks, I can follow up on those things, or ask my assistants to follow up, or ask our researchers to establish what they think would be the best path to help get your point across. Am I answering your question, or by just?
Yeah, no, that was good, and I was just wondering if we all asked for the same thing, if that have more clout, than.
Well, I think so,
I
yeah.
think that's almost goes to the AUMA though, isn't it?
Well, that's what I'm wondering, because we just came back from AUMA.
Yes.
And, how we can, get a good united voice to, especially help for municipalities. And that was the message I've been getting from AUMA every time, is that municipalities are begging for money. We're only getting 8 cents out of the tax dollar, and, I'm hoping the government's going to get that message.
Well, that is an issue, and intentionally or unintentionally, more and more things have been downloaded onto the communities. And then you've got more and more hoops to go through. And to refer back to your opening introductory remarks, Mr. Mayor, as a mayor in the 1980s, and then as a councillor returning to public government, to civic government in the late 90s, and then again last year, I could contrast how much more difficult and how much greater the burden for paperwork and for rules and regulations has become compared to the way it was 25 years ago, 27 years ago when I was first a mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clay.
I'd just like to commend Mr. Bickner for being so visible in our constituency. Seems like everywhere I go, across or ball games or events, you're there. It was very nice that we have an MLA that's very visible. Thank you.
Thank you for recognizing that. I really do want people to know that I am accessible. I enjoy interacting with people. If there's any part of this job that actually gives me my greatest highs, it's being able to sit with somebody or to even recreate with somebody where you're sitting and you can chat about things and watch a sporting event or something else like that. We've got a great heritage and a great Southern Alberta community. And to shift gears a little bit, if in fact we do get realigned federally, it's certainly my hope. It won't affect me as an MLA, but it'll affect me as a citizen of Canada. I certainly hope that Sterling and Raymond can be included in this, let's call it the West Wind School Division block, if you will.
Gary, we're out of time, but I want to just leave you with a matter of serious concern. I noted with special interest your comment that all Albertans should be treated equal. And I think around the table, I'm safe in saying that this council supports that 100%. However, at this time, all Albertans are not treated equally in this specific area. Right now, and I'm always very nervous and uncomfortable with government in the business of wealth redistribution. But the reality is that towns and cities are crying for dollars to build our infrastructure, whether it be ice rinks, pools, those things that create a good quality of life, libraries. Currently, because of linear tax revenue, counties are allowed to hoard millions and millions and millions of dollars. Sadly, excuse me, many of those counties will not participate and contribute a share of that linear tax revenue with the community who is charged to build the ice rink and maintain it, build the pool and maintain it, build the library and maintain it. And there are communities with billions of dollars, millions of dollars, and so there truly is a have and have not environment at this time in the province. Now, having said that, very possibly the only mechanism is that linear tax revenue, because counties don't have to build it, they don't have to maintain it, but they collect millions and millions of dollars in taxes. And that is a detriment to our school system, to our hospitals and healthcare delivery, and to the local infrastructure, the quality of life kinds of things that I've mentioned, pools, ice rinks, libraries. And so please, Mr. Bickman, would you pay special attention to that issue should it come into a point where it's discussed in municipal affairs, because it's got to stop. It's so bad, it's criminal, because there are municipalities, and this can be tracked, that have millions and millions of tax dollars, especially from linear. They have a tough time spending it all. They have a tough time spending it all.
Well,
And that's an inherent situation that smacks of unfairness, and it really has to stop. And I know from some of the people that are on the AUMA board now, I think that initiative will move forward somehow. But anyway, we're out of time, and so I'm going to reserve the last word, because at some point I wouldn't mind having you give us your opinion on it. But you have stated that your party strongly feels that all Albertans should be treated equal, and that's not happening at the present time. So thank you for coming. Thank you, as Councillor Court has so ably mentioned, for being visible, for being accessible. We appreciate you coming to our parades and just being available to interact, and so that we can have a chance to bounce some of these concerns off of you.
It's an honor to serve you, and I will do whatever I can to see that you're treated fairly, and that all Albertans, including urban Albertans in Southern Alberta, are treated more fairly.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. We'll see you later.
I'd like to call on Alexis Buzzy. If you'll take the podium, Alexis has a presentation to make. And again, Alexis, we welcome you to our chamber. And in spite of the fact that we're just a couple minutes over, if you need a couple of minutes to make your point or to allow for some input, we'll make sure that you get the time you need.
And that's what goes away.
What I was trying to say is that opinion of one statement of the town, if we want to disseminate those points, then you guys can add what you want.
Okay. Let's talk about that later. Okay.
Yeah. Marion has
Sorry. Thank you for letting me come speak with you today. I have some handouts for you. I wanted to put them in the agenda, but I wasn't here last week, so it's just some support documents if you wanted to review them later. I do have the full handbook. This is just the introduction of the handbook for CCMARD, and it's also available online on their website for free. So I'll just give these.
Thanks, Marion.
Okay, so it shouldn't be too long of a presentation. The CCMARD is the Canadian Coalition of Municipalities Against Racism and Discrimination. This is a quote taken from that handbook that I handed out to you. Municipalities are the main focus of ethnic and cultural mixing, an ideal place to develop policies and implement concrete strategies and actions to eliminate racism. What is CCMARD? It is one of a network of 6 regional coalitions: Europe, Africa, Asia and Pacific, Arab states, Latin America, and the Caribbean, and Canada. This network of coalitions was created by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, as a response to the World Conference Against Racism, Racial Discrimination, Xenophobia, and Related Intolerances held in Durban in 2001. The objectives of CCMRD that they list in the booklet is 1, to share experiences and lessons learned with others, and 2, to strengthen policies to counter all forms of discrimination to achieve greater social inclusion. And this is another quote that I really liked from the booklet. By taking action to combat racism and multiple forms of discrimination, municipalities are able to build respectful, inclusive, and safe societies where everyone has an equal opportunity to participate in economic, social, cultural, recreational, and political life in the community. So why it is important, and why I also think it is important for municipalities to join, is that local governments are a major political force within a community with the ability to influence public opinion and to help foster connections between groups that may not have occurred otherwise. A municipal government, as an ongoing, stable entity to its community, has the ability to implement initiatives that create stable, long-term changes. Also, being the moral authority in the community, they are able to influence other organizations that have impacts on the local community. These are a few of the points outlined in the CCMRD handbook, and again, if you want to review it all, I can give that to you later. The benefits of joining CCMARD. It will allow the town access to the network of municipalities that have already joined, providing a channel of communication to share best practices and resources to fight racism and all forms of discrimination. If the town would join CCMRD and declare to its citizens and neighbors, it would allow us to develop stronger relations to our neighbors on the reserve, as well as increase trust, loyalty, and respect towards the municipality from its employees and citizens. This is just a small sampling, and again, as I will say many times, more can be found in the handbook, or I can discuss it later with you as well. Before I actually read what's on the screen here, I'm going to just tell you why I am very passionate about this. A little bit of personal experience. As a white woman who grew up in a somewhat wealthy environment, I saw the world in a very one-dimensional light. And then once I moved to Edmonton and completed a degree in cultural anthropology with a women's studies minor and a certificate in community service learning, I quickly learned that my reality is not the norm by any means. Although we live in a beautiful country that can be proud of its level of acceptance and tolerance compared to other global north nations, there is still a long way to go in order for every person, no matter the color of their skin or their gender, to have the same possibilities and chances for reaching their full potential. I do believe that every person should, in an ideal world, have equal opportunities. This is something that we as Canadians have the opportunity to achieve within our own country. This can be achieved, or at least started, by a major shift in mindset. If we make it our goal to educate the people of Cardston of the realities of other people with a focus on mutual respect and acceptance, then it would go a long way in repairing relations not only with our neighbours on the reserve, but also create a safe and welcoming environment for any person who wishes to make Cardston their home in the future. Not too far ahead. Okay. If you decide to approve this project, then our next step would be to sign a declaration stating our intent to the citizens of Cardston. It will be our responsibility to create and implement our own programs, and I would be more than willing to put in as much work for this project as I can. I would begin by meeting with the individual in Fort McMurray who is currently administering their CCMARD in order to discuss this with them and what seems to be working for them. There is no monetary commitment required to join CCMARD, and we will only be answerable to the citizens of Cardston. As I am an intern here at the town and therefore only going to be working here for a set amount of time, I'd want to set something up with the community members to keep this project going in the long term. And then I just have listed different communities in Canada who have joined the coalition. There's 2 slides of that. So, do you have any questions?
Councillor Court.
I really don't see any problem with this. My only concern, and I think you addressed it in the slide before, is that are we going to be giving up any sovereignty to, say, like a human rights tribunal where they come in and tell us you're
No.
doing this wrong, you gotta do this.
No, the point of CCMRD is to open channels of communication. It's not a governing body saying how we have to run the program. It's really up to us and talking with our neighbors to see what would work best for our community and making up our own projects because of that.
Okay, questions, Councillor Cronin?
I just would like you to comment on a statement that you showed us a minute ago. It says, answerable to the citizens of the town. How do you envision that to happen?
Well, because we'd be signing a declaration, we could even put it in the newspaper, make it visible to the town citizens that this is our intent. And we're kind of making ourselves responsible to them, saying this is our intent, and if they wish to monitor in the future, and if they come back to it in a year or so and nothing has happened, then it's really, we are answerable to them in that sense.
Okay, I have another question regarding the statement that you have called for a coalition of municipalities that you said you really like. It talks about where everyone has an equal opportunity to participate in the economic, social, cultural, recreational, and political life of the community. I'm interested in that statement from the recreational aspect. We, as you know, not so long ago, had an issue regarding that very element. Have you thought of that when we were going through that, considering what you are presenting?
Yeah, I did think about that while we're going through there, but again, it's trying to think of things that work best for the community and for our neighbors. So if that is what works best for the town of Cardston, then that is what works best, right?
All
It's
right.
about inclusion and trying to make it the best thing for everybody.
Any other questions, council? I've got in your discussions with groups and individuals that you have interacted with in this regard, and with total anonymity, no names, no communities mentioned, can you give us some examples of the kind of things that maybe we should be on the lookout for in hopes of getting ourselves entangled in issues that are blatantly or even more subtly racist and exclusionary?
Yeah, one thing that I have noticed, and it's not all the time, is the use of language. People don't quite realize that words have power, and especially when we have such a strong ties to the reserve, just our neighbor, and they do come into the town a lot. People don't always use the right language in addressing them or talking about them, and it can really cause a lot of damage in the future. And one of the projects I would want to do is sort of maybe an educational piece on language and the use of language and the power of words, so people would realize and maybe become more sensitive to the words that they use in the town and kind of create a more welcoming environment for everyone.
Councillor Smith?
This program, will that take a lot of time of administration, or are you specifically going to take on the project yourself?
I will do everything that I can, but because I am only an intern and I won't be here forever, I've already talked to a few people in the community and they've loved the idea, but I think I can try and find members of the community to work through this project once I'm gone.
Yeah, I have no
think it's a
problem allowing
good
that program
idea.
to come in the community. I mean, that's almost what it takes, is someone to take on the challenge. And
Yeah.
a lot of people from the community think that council needs to solve all the problems and everything, when it actually needs to come from the citizens, or, from somebody to implement these programs. And, our job is to make that possible for those programs to be successful. So I have no problem bringing it in. I see 51 other municipalities, like you said, throughout the country are involved in that, so.
Councillor Creed?
Yeah, actually, so I see this is actually under FCSS recommendations. So is this a group that's, supportive, and you're working with FCSS on this initiative?
Well, so far it's mostly just me.
Okay, are they ready to jump on?
Not so much, not FCSS. I presented it to them because it did concern them, and they approved it. They wanted me to come and present it to you. But it would be more just citizens, people who aren't with the council or with the boards at all.
So Alexis, are you seeking a motion to adopt or embrace or to participate? Is that where we would go with this, Marion?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Court so moves. Do you have a particular wording that you'd like that motion to be utilized in the minutes?
Whatever Jill types up is probably good.
There is a recommendation from the
proclamation?
CFSO.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would
I don't actually-
accept their recommendation.
Sorry.
Councillor Edmund.
It's a proclamation
Okay.
that you make as a
Thank you.
municipality.
Yes, I can pull that off. Didn't even think to bring that.
That's
I
okay.
can pull that off the website, and you as a municipality would sign it. And Fort McLeod recently did it as well, and I don't know if you've seen it, but they have a sign coming into their municipality that they have just joined this program.
Marion, you had a comment?
I just wanted to add one comment to Alexis's presentation is one of the reasons that I support this as administration is it does meet one of your shared values that was identified, being respect and compassion for everyone in the community. And I think this is a program that fits very well with that value that was council's vision almost a year ago now. So,
Councillor Smith, did you have a comment? And then Councillor Dow.
I know you said there's no monetary cost for the town. I mean, I'm sure at some point there will be or whatever. How is that covered, or is it under XCSS, or is it under just general, or?
I think the main thing that I'd be trying to do is to get grants before I would come and ask for money for the project. I have spoken to a few people, and I don't have the information with me. I think I was a little nervous preparing this. I might have forgotten a few things. But I have been told of a few different grants that could be used for this project. And that's something that I will discuss also when I go and talk to the person who's in charge of their program in Fort McLeod to see how they go about finding the funding for any of their projects.
Okay, Councillor Dow, you had a question?
No, Councillor Smith has brought up the financing situation, so I have no questions.
Let me make a couple comments before I call a question, Alexis. Excuse me. There have been a lot of good things, as you're probably aware, that have gone on. I would hope that as we would move forward with you sort of spearheading this and into what other realms it takes us, and I think this is an initiative that we would welcome. That's the sense I'm getting in a unanimous or near unanimous position. And of course, I'll call a question in a minute. There have been lots of really, really positive efforts that have gone on in the last, at least in my experience, 4.5 years, nearing 5 years. The one that comes to mind is the powwow, because it's given us firsthand opportunity to work on a committee where we, by the very nature of the powwow event, we really cannot move forward in a meaningful way without significant participation, significant input on the committee to hold the powwow. And it's brought some very positive interaction in the community. Are there steps that we need to move onward and upward and forward? Absolutely, undeniably. And so in this exercise, I would hope that along with the kinds of things that we would want to do, excuse me again, to not be perceived as a community where there is some racism, some bias, some prejudice, that we can at least look at our victories, at our successes, and there are many. And so I'm going to call a question. All in favor of the motion to embrace, to participate, to support the CCMARD.
there is a motion
It's actually on
recommended.
7.
Someone may,
That's-
whoever made the motion may
I'm
want to
just
just.
calling for the vote in support of the motion as it's been stated, and I'm sure Jill will get that in the minutes. My intent is not to rewrite the motion. I'm just calling for support, to calling the question of Councillor Court's motion. So all in favor? Carried, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, let's take this to the next step. Do you want to come back and visit with us at the council level in a month, 2 months? What are your wishes on that, Alexis?
I can see this as a project that would take some time to get up and going. Would a 3-month basis be?
90 days works for me.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
So that's then the intent, that Alexis could come back with a bit of a progress report in about 90 days.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And again, this is a great initiative that you've taken, and it's nice to see unanimous support from council. Thanks, Alexis. Okay. We will now adopt some minutes, or not. The first one is the special council meeting, August the 7th. Could I have a motion to adopt the minutes of the special council meeting of August the 2nd? That being a further meeting, especially for the purpose of discussing the Fortis offer. I have a motion moved by Councillor Smith to approve the minutes of the special council meeting of August the 7th. Any discussion on that motion? I will call that question. All in favor? Those minutes are approved. Second one is we will need to adopt the minutes of the council meeting of about a month ago, the September 11th council meeting. I'd like to have a motion to adopt those minutes. Councillor Cronin so moves. Any discussion on the motion to adopt those minutes of the September 11th council meeting? Seeing none, I will call that question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Under business arising, bylaw 1616 is the dog bylaw. It is a lengthy bylaw. We've had 2 readings, and we are possibly ready for 3rd reading. If there is a motion for 3rd reading, I will call that motion now, and then we'll have some discussion on it. Councillor Dow so moves. Councillor Dow moves 3rd reading of bylaw 1616. Going to see the exact wording of how it is worded. Oh, wow, there's a lot of minutes in there. Bylaw of the town of Cardston relating to the regulation and keeping of dogs. Any discussion on that motion? You had a comment, Marion?
Yes, administration is just recommending one change to Schedule B. And I apologize, I just caught this afternoon when I was reviewing again, but fees related to dogs, it talks about H, destruction of dogs, $90 plus GST. I'm recommending that we eliminate that charge because we do have a vet
Fee?
do that procedure for us. And under number D, we have veterinary fees as the amount expended. So I believe that's a duplication, and if the fee was $120, I wouldn't want us to only be able to charge 90, so that's my recommendation.
Oh, okay.
Would it make sense, Marion, that under Schedule B, item D, that the veterinary fee possibly be just a little bit more specific, such as including destruction of the dog?
Well, no, it's anything that we would use a vet for.
Okay.
It would be covered there. So because we do use a vet for that procedure, then it would automatically be covered under vet fees.
Could I ask a question then? In reading the bylaw, I realized that it's possible that the dog is apprehended and the owner does not want it returned but chooses to have it destroyed. So that vet fee, I understand, will be passed on to the owner who chooses to have the animal destroyed. So is that the reason why that was there?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So is that now understood that if there is veterinary fees, the owner will still have to pay for those fees?
If an owner voluntarily surrenders a dog for destruction, then we would charge that back to the owner. There is times when there isn't either an owner identified or whatever, that we have to stand that cost. But if we have an opportunity to recoup those costs, we will.
Okay, So in other words, what was a problem is the fixed rate?
Yes.
Because we don't know what the rate might be.
Exactly. I was
Okay,
concerned
that's a
about
rate.
having a fixed
Okay,
rate because
all right.
that could change. And
Okay.
it does fall under that category.
I have another
Further question, Councillor Cronin.
The second question I have is, I'm trying to really understand the appeal process that is listed in here. The appeal process mentioned that if a dog is apprehended.
What number?
And, well, it's those dogs that are considered dangerous to the public. Anyway, the idea is that for an owner who does not agree with the labeling of his dog or the keeping his dog away or being impounded, it can appeal, which is under, let me see, I have it here. It's under 5.5D. It talks about an appeal. And I understand by reading that, that the...
No, not
The-
5.
Sorry. It
Can't be
is
5.
6D and 6E. It talks about that the appeal will be heard.
8.
Yeah, 8.
Oh, sorry, I don't have my glasses. I should bring them once in a while. Sorry. Yes, it talks about the town council being the appeal court. How exactly do you view that court to be? I'm trying to understand what it would look like. I have a nasty, angry dog owner that really wants his dog being turned back to him. But it's a dangerous dog to the community.
So according to the bylaw, the appellant would have to pay a $100 deposit, and then we would set up an appeal meeting with council. It would be a separate meeting where council would determine, based on the evidence that's provided to them, whether the dog should be considered dangerous or a nuisance or not.
Okay,
And we
so-
felt that that was, in the previous bylaw, it talked about an appeal committee or a...
Committee
and-
of Council?
Right, and
Dog
we
committee.
felt that it was better served by council as a whole, that town council should make that determination if you have a citizen who is wanting to appeal a decision of administration.
Okay, so is that a public meeting? Is that
Yes,
closed
it would be
meeting?
public. No, it
It's
would
a
be,
public meeting.
But
So
they
it
would
would be
have to-
part of a council meeting?
no, it would be a separate meeting as an appeal.
Okay, yeah, all right, thanks.
Can I ask as a follow-up, Marion? I'm
Could be at the same time, but, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I just want to add to that. It could be at the same time because, or it could be separate. I want to clarify that. It'll all depend on timing. We wouldn't want someone to have to wait for 2 weeks for a council meeting to be
All
able
right.
to process this, right? Yeah.
So how many days after the dog is being taken
Well,
away?
We cannot put a dog down for 3 days.
Or 10 days if
Or
it's
10
a
days
purebred?
if it's a purebred. And
Right.
so the appeal has to take place within a
Within 10
specific
days.
period.
10 days.
And then we would have to proceed from there depending on when we could get that set up.
Okay,
But
thank
it would
you.
be as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Marion, because of the costs that would be incurred to have a special meeting, I would suggest that it be desirable
Right.
that wherever possible, and the only time we couldn't do within 7 days is if it happened tomorrow, for example, then we'd be looking
Yeah.
at 13 days. That we should try it whenever possible to have it be just before or just after a regular council meeting at the convenience of the appellant, and thereby saving the cost, because that would then be included
Yeah.
into the per diems that are part of those council
Yeah.
meetings.
I guess what I was meaning is that it wouldn't be part of a regular council agenda. It would
Okay,
be
all
a separate.
So the intent there is to maybe try to do that as much as possible.
Okay.
Another comment, I'm sorry, Councillor Creed.
Yeah, I've got several concerns here. I spent quite a bit of time yesterday reading the draft that's in our current council package and comparing it to the the draft that we voted on first and second readings on, and also the original amendment to bylaw 1546, and going back on the website and reading bylaw 1546. One of the concerns there's been some changes from the bylaw that we voted first and second reading on to the bylaw that's in our package now for third reading. The intent originally, as it came to council on the 14th of August, was because of dogs that were causing problems in certain areas of town, and so it was to give, the intent that I understood at that time was to give Lloyd, authority or an ability to to deal with those difficult problems. I didn't realize when I read that amendment that there was only one small change from the original bylaw 1546. The amendment, I won't find it here, but talked about entering into the properties, which was actually exactly the same as it was in the original 1546 bylaw. The only addition was that a clause stating that he could use a tranquilizer gun, at his discretion, and we asked that would be sent back for legal advice. And then in our the draft that we voted first and second reading on was basically amendments from 1546, and it was highlighted in, the changes were highlighted in yellow on that 1546, and they went back on that particular section, I think it was 11, in when it talked about inspection, and it didn't have the section in the using the tranquilizer gun, and then now on this one it's been added in again. The other thing that concerns me, I guess maybe primarily because I've had some dog owners call me, was that in what wasn't highlighted in yellow on the changes was Schedule D, which increases the license fees for, I'll just say for a spayed or neutered dog, 2.5 times, from $10 to $25 a year, and which wasn't noted as a change, but it was a significant, it's a 2.5 times increase, and there's numerous other little things because of the changes in the bylaw that don't quite make sense. I think need to be worked on. Anyway, so it kind of leaves me at a point where I think we need to rework and rediscuss this from the start and bring it back to maybe back to reading one again, because of the changes that have been made in it, especially the changes in the fee schedule, which I didn't realize at the time that was a significant increase. I don't think we want to penalize responsible dog owners for the problem that we originally discussed, which was the nuisance dogs, which I'm very supportive. We need to do something with the nuisance dogs, but I'm not in favor of penalizing responsible dog owners.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Councilor, the proper procedure would be to fail the third reading. That would be the proper procedure. If that, and at that point, then we'd have to go back to square one. But I do believe that our attempt on the licensing fees is to be more current with what licensing fees are in other jurisdictions, because I don't believe the licensing fees have changed for a while. Marion, your comments?
Yeah, just in response to Councillor Creed's concerns, the changes that were made to this bylaw were based on recommendations after legal advice. So the first 2 readings were put forward. We then received the legal advice. We made some changes. Again, on the bylaw, yes, I agree that this bylaw is different than what you did first and second. But the changes to this bylaw were what was discussed around the council table. For instance, the committee that would be responsible for
Yes, that-
appeals and some of those.
Right, that was changed from the first and second reading to this one, that
Right.
you put it
So-
to council instead of a dog committee.
Right, exactly. And then there was some wording and some just reference items in here that were changed as well. There was some things that weren't referencing properly, and so I've caught those as well. Now, when I did present the bylaw originally with the changes highlighted in yellow, I did state that I had not highlighted any of the fee changes because all of the fees were being proposed to change.
Okay, I get
So
that. I
it
missed
wasn't-
that.
Yeah, it wasn't highlighted, but I did present
Yeah,
that
like,
to
this
council.
was what was brought to my attention by some of the dog owners that, concerns that, yeah, this is
Right.
just a
The
big
next
jump.
thing that we did prior to bringing this back to council, based on council's request, is we did send a notice out to every dog tag owner that in 2012 dog tags. So they were all aware of those. So yes, I would suppose that you would have got some calls regarding the increase to the fees. But they are in line with a number of other municipalities that we looked at. In fact, they're substantially lower than some of the ones that we looked at, but they haven't changed in years, yes, you're right.
Any other comments on the motion for third reading of bylaw 1616?
Can I just add one more comment to that, Mr. Mayor? I'm sorry. If there is some significant changes here that you're uncomfortable with, if you want to give us direction to go back and make those changes prior to third reading, then by all means, now's the time to do that, rather than either failing third reading and having to start over again, because if there's just some minor adjustments, now's the time to make those changes. That would be my preference, because if you fail third reading, we go back to the original bylaw and we haven't accomplished anything for the last 3 meetings that we've talked about.
What we can do, and again, I don't know, are we handcuffed by procedure? Because we could take a motion to table with the directions to administration. What's the procedural preference?
Well, we don't need a motion to table. I just need direction to make any amendments to this that you would like to see made prior to it coming forward for third reading again.
Okay, Councillor Cronin.
I kind of read that whole bylaw too. And as for the fees, I mean, I know what they were in my part of the woods in BC, and I would say this is very reasonable, more than reasonable. So that doesn't disturb me. I looked at it from a perspective of the officer, of peace officer that has to do the job and deliver results, and try to help the community feel comfortable regarding that issue. And personally, I think with the changes that have been made, they have been legally recommended, and I feel I can live with those changes. I really can. Unless there is some that really disturb you, and maybe if you want to address them a little bit more specifically.
Any other comments at all? Councillor Creed.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I don't want to belabor the council meeting tonight because some of these are a little maybe nitpicky, but I would like to have some time to maybe go to administration and just go over it. And I wonder if we could just table it till the next council meeting.
Well, okay, I guess my concern is this. It has been vetted by our legal experts in Edmonton.
Yeah.
And I guess I would be very hesitant to second guess the legal experts in Edmonton, because after all, it is about dog control. So, any other comments?
You want me to make some suggestions at this point then?
Well, I'm gonna call the question, because I'm only getting one. I'm only getting one voice that's not happy with 1616.
Yeah, I think. I guess with a caveat that I can maybe
Where are you quoting?
talk with some of the little changes. I don't know.
Under what section?
Okay, let's one. Okay, first of all, I'm uncomfortable with the definition of nuisance dog because it talks about any dog that is allowed to roam free by the owner or caregiver, a dog left in a motor vehicle, a dog with access to persons or animals. And then as you go to 3A, except as provided in section 3C, owner of a nuisance dog shall not permit such dog to run at large. Well, that's the definition of a nuisance dog. So if the dog is not running at large, then it's not a nuisance dog under the definition, and it doesn't work. If that definition was changed to, say, a dog that habitually is at large or habitually is left, has a history of those items that it references, then I think the definition would fit a little better with the reference to the nuisance dogs.
What about the dog that is a pit bull terrier or whatever, an animal that has a more aggressive behavior?
Well, that's under
and
aggressive dog.
And goes out, well, some people will call them pets, and go out and start to maul a child, as it happened in BC.
Well, I understand. I'm just talking about some wording in the bylaw. In the previous bylaw, they don't use the word nuisance dog. They says owner of a dog shall not permit the dog to run at large. They've added the word nuisance dog, and like say, it sort of defies the definition. That's why I'm saying there's a few things.
It's a defined
we can
term.
remove the word
It's a defined
nuisance.
term.
Yeah, maybe the nuisance is a word that could be removed.
Councillor Court.
I don't think we need to take that out. If a dog owner cannot take care of their dog in a proper sense, then that dog becomes a nuisance dog. You leave it in a motor vehicle where they can bite a kid as it walks by, that's a nuisance dog.
Well, I'm assuming that he's talking about a dog that's being declared a
Prior
nuisance
to?
dog, and if you're going to declare a dog a nuisance dog, it would have to be for a reason, and it wouldn't be the reason that it's out once. I think Lloyd would be reasonably to get it back, but if it's habitually out, I think it's declared a nuisance dog.
Then what I'd suggest to that comment is we remove the word nuisance, and it just says, an owner of a dog shall not permit the dog to run at large, period. So it's not, any dog in town is not allowed to run at large, right? So it doesn't have to be defined as a nuisance dog. So we can take that out, yeah.
Okay, with that one change, I'll call a question. All in favor of third reading? Thank you. With that one change, nuisance dog will be taken out. Okay. 6B, the Gordon Orr property. Marion, what do we need on this one? So we know what we're actually seeking to resolve.
Yeah, what they're asking there is that the town consider doing some engineering work on that property to determine if they could actually build on the existing property. We have engaged the services of EBA Engineering to do some work for us on the hillside already for the monitoring purpose, and we've had a preliminary conversation with them. I kind of want to know what the cost would be and whether they felt that the hill was truly the impacting the basement. And so because I just received the request on Thursday, we didn't have time to put all that together. EBA Engineering will be down on this Thursday, and they'll take a look at the site, and then they'll give us some cost estimates. So my recommendation is that this be tabled until such time as EBA can give us some cost estimates on it.
Councillor Dow.
Do we have to put a time limit on it so it doesn't drag on and on and on?
Well, I think if the motion says tabled until we have further information from EBA Engineering.
The chair will entertain said motion. I'd like to, a mover, please. Councillor Smith moves. Councillor Smith moves tabling of the issue regarding the feasibility of the cost to determine if that or property is usable and suitable for further development on that property. And so I guess with that motion to table, any other discussion on the motion to table? Is there anything that council wants to glean if, when we get an engineering firm to tell us what it's going to cost us to look and see if that lot is usable?
What I'd like to know in general is every time that happens, is it can be the town's responsibility because they built it at the base of a hill. Every time that hill moves a little, which is the nature of a hill, are we gonna be stuck every time we turn
Okay.
around on stuff like this?
Okay.
That's what I'd like to know.
Councillor Cronin.
If you recall, we discussed that very issue a while back, and we had asked administration to look into Lethbridge, and because I have many similar situation. And what we found out that there is no funds allocated by the municipality to pay for such difficulty when the owner chose to build in that location. And there is absolutely no way the town will spend a nickel. Lethbridge has that policy.
Well, and that's,
Councillor Smith, please.
yeah, I mean, that's exactly, I mean, the last time, when we offered those 2 lots, or the choice of those lots, I mean, we didn't have to do that, so I mean, you know, it was, you know, something above and beyond what the council or the town had to do for their situation there, so, you know, to come back on us and give us a hard time about it, you know, I think we did a pretty good thing there right off the hop there, so.
I think we've been very generous in offering 2 lots.
Councillor Dow.
We've got a problem because what is fair to one may not be fair to the other, or seem to be fair. And how do you find the word fair? It's a difficult thing to do.
Councillor Court.
I'm with you, I don't want to be hard-nosed about this, but I think we've done a lot of work, and for us to own that property in a swap or whatever, that prevents any other problems there, and we can maybe alleviate some of the problems with that hill slippage, but I understand their situation too, but I don't feel appreciated, let's just say it that way, after reading this letter, that we've tried and tried, but they don't seem to think we have done anything for them.
Let me make a comment that I think is very glaring and very obvious. In real estate, and anyone that's had any dealings in real estate knows that location is a huge factor in the value of a piece of property. Half an acre here may be a whole lot more value for resale than a half an acre here. And so for them to take issue with size of the property, I think is a non-starter for me, because the piece of property that they have now may not have a real great value on the market or for assessment. And yet they were offered, as a replacement, they were offered, if I'm not mistaken, a lot down in 2A West cul-de-sac. And I think you all know where that lot, those are.
On Main Street.
They didn't refer to that one in their letter.
Well, I mean, they had that choice, did they not?
When they originally came to council with the request, and we met with them administratively, we provided a number of options of town-owned property, and the Scow subdivision was one that we did have a discussion with, but because of the size of the lots and perhaps the age of the home, moving the home there, it wasn't necessarily an ideal location. So we were looking at other options. If they were to keep the older home and move it, they could put a newer home on those Scow subdivision. It would be a better fit. So we've looked at a number of different options.
Well, and quite frankly, the lot on Main Street going up the South Hill, correct? That's the one we're talking about, would be a fit age-wise, but certainly would not be a fit age-wise because of its advanced age. That home is probably, what, 70 years old? It's older than I am, I know that, because that family has lived there as long as I've been on the planet. And so I think really, I'm not exactly sure what more council can do. So I guess we've got a motion to table this pending for information. I hate to see us spend a lot of engineering dollars, and I guess once we find out what the cost is going to be, then we'll know how much that engineering cost is going to be, and will we spend that much money?
Yeah, if I might, we're not paying them to come down Thursday on that lot particularly. It's the monitoring of the hill that we already have them engaged with, but they will look at that particular site and give us some feedback on Thursday.
But that's my point. If there's going to be some mitigation of the slippage on that hill, they'll let us know the cost of that, right? So that would be my position, that mitigation on the slippage of a hill could be tens of thousands of dollars. And so council, as I'm hearing several others of council say, there's a limit to how much we feel like we're obligated to do to try to bail this family out of this situation. Councillor Cronin.
They are going to get some relief from the province for disaster area, right? So there they were able to access some kind of funding to help them with the disaster.
Okay.
That is pretty good.
So if there's no other comments on the motion to table, I'll call a question. All in favor of tabling? It's carried. Okay, the next one is Dwayne Beezer, who's been looking at pool options, has asked for 2 weeks extension of his time period, and so we need to have that discussion. And we don't really need a motion on this, do we, Marion?
Yes, because
need a
there is a
motion?
motion
Okay.
to give them 90 days.
Councillor Court.
Because we won't be building in the next 2 weeks, I don't think it's a problem, but I think that's got to be it. 2 weeks, if they haven't got anything, then we move back to Plan
Plan A.
B1, whatever you want to call it.
Councillor Dow.
I agree with Councillor Court. This has been dragging on and dragging on and dragging on and never getting to a conclusion.
Okay, can we have a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Court moves that the
2 weeks.
the 2 weeks be extended to the 23rd of October
May
meeting.
I add to that motion, that will be the only extension we'll do.
Okay. Discussion on the motion to extend the time period. Seeing none, all in favor, I'll call a question. Okay, thank you very much.
Could I just ask something?
Sure.
Of administration? Mr. Bizer mentioned in his note that he was going to contact you. Has that happened?
Yeah, we've been talking.
Okay, all right, thanks.
I can say that I appreciate the efforts of administration for us to go and look at that beautiful glassed-in with the movable panels pool in Edmonton. It was fortuitous in its timing, and it was a beautiful day, and we loved the pool, but we didn't like the $10 or $15 million price ticket on that pool. Councillor Court.
I do want to, just to soften it, but I do appreciate Dwayne Beezer's efforts in doing this. I don't want to diminish that at all.
For sure. All right.
Any effort.
The next thing we have is the motions coming out of Committee of the Whole. So we'll go through those motions as recommended from Committee of the Whole. Number one that needs a motion, move to recommend to Council to approve the joint use of facilities between the school and West Wind, pending amendments and cost determination by both parties. Can I have a motion, please?
Also move.
Councillor Dow so moves. Any questions? Any questions for discussion on that motion? I will call that question. All in favor? That motion carries. Moved by Councillor Cronin to recommend to Council to accept the UQMP as presented. Can I have a motion there?
Yeah. I will
Councillor
make the motion
Cronin
to
made the
accept it.
recommendation. Councillor Cronin so moves. Any discussion on the recommendation to accept the Uniform Quality Management Plan as presented? I'll call a question. All in favor? That motion carries. Move to recommend to Council to compensate Chief Mountain Gas for lost revenue during the sewer project on 2nd Avenue, which extended into some weeks and caused them some lost revenue. Can I have a motion on that, please? Councillor Smith so moves. Discussion on that motion.
Did we discuss that 750? Is that what we agreed on?
Yes, that was the
Yeah,
motion.
we agreed
That was the
upon
motion.
That's what
that.
you requested.
Right.
Yeah.
And we thought that it probably was less than the revenue we probably
Councillor
fully
Dow.
lost.
So I almost think that this problem we had on 3rd Avenue East across from the Chief Mountain Gas Club was almost an act of God because of the water problem that was there and the kind of things we had no control over. And so I question whether or not we should pay this money to them.
Councillor Cronin.
If I remember well, last time at the Council of the Whole, we discussed that possibility. and Marian informed us that when that dog, they found many old main and many old pipes that they were not expecting, and electrical that was not where it was supposed to be, that delayed the whole project and forced the closure on that road longer than it was supposed to be. So although it might have been considered, as you call it, an act of God, there were subsequent problems due to construction that allowed us to kind of look at it from a different angle.
But there was a problem, they couldn't compact because of water.
But had
Oh,
we not
that's
dug a
another
hole in the
problem.
ground, had we not dug a hole in the ground,
Had
there
we not
would not
had
have been
our problem.
any problem with, that resulted in a detriment to his business. Councillor Smith.
Well, we've been through this at CCW, the recommendation's already here, let's just
Yeah.
vote on
Okay,
it.
I'm going to call a question. All in favor of the motion? Carries, thank you very much. Now, the final motion coming from Committee of the Whole, but let me make a little bit of a comment before I ask for the motion. Let's have a motion now, please.
I'll make that recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Court to declare November Seniors Fall Prevention Month in Cardston. Marion refreshed my memory. When we visited a couple of years ago with Mr. Cuff in the Crow's Nest Pass, he recommended against all these declaring this week or that month unless we're prepared to do something to make it a meaningful declaration. It's easy for a council to just willy-nilly, because it sounds good and it might be something that the folks just really feel warm and fuzzy about. We can declare anything we want. But there's no meaning in it if we're not prepared to do something with it or about it, or give some support to a group that's prepared to do something with it or about it. Councillor Cronin.
I totally agree with that, and I had in mind the seniors falling. There are so many seniors that fall on our sidewalk when there's snow and ice on the side of the curbs. And really, how can we as a town make sure that when they remove the snow from the street, that it can be taken out on the side that is between the street and the sidewalk, which is where they get themselves stuck and fall.
Well, and even in the seniors' lodges, my brother is involved at Lee Crest as in a church position up there. He had to go down to Barnwell. A lady had a fall about a week ago, and the funeral was in Barnwell, and she's buried in Barnwell. She had a fall in Lee Crest, and there's lots of folks will fall in these facilities. Now, I don't want in any way for us, I don't want to try to change anybody's mind. I just want us to, as we move forward in declaring this week this and this week that, that it becomes meaningless unless we're prepared to do something about it, to do something with it, or lend our support to some group that is doing something about it. Councillor Cohen.
Well, I just wonder if we declare that month of November fall prevention, can we also let the merchants along the strip where there are stores or businesses that the senior access, to remind them of the importance to remove the snow in a timely fashion, because they will fall. I mean, they do their best, I know they do, but how can we make them aware that this is fall prevention and to make an extra effort?
Well, and we have bylaws that say that they've got to maintain the
I know,
property.
but
in
it
front of the
doesn't
business.
always
Councillor
happen.
Down.
Is this going to be a one-time thing, or is it going to be a perennial thing?
Well, that
Not sure
should
we
be
know that.
annual, supposedly.
Councillor Court.
Just to go further, it's not just on the outside, there are stores inside where carpets are made, things like that. Just to make them aware that those hazards do exist for you and I, or whoever it might be. We step over them. People that don't have that high step may trip over that. So just if we could somehow make them aware within their own facilities to take care of that kind of situation.
Do
Marion,
a
you had-
communication piece, maybe.
You had a
or
comment,
something.
Marion, please?
I was just going to say, do you want us to do some type
Yeah,
of a brief
communication.
education component throughout the month that we could put.
Yeah, I think that would be a useful thing, because honestly, there are too many seniors that get hurt in those winter months. Too many of them in our town.
I know, speaking personally, my mother is 91 and a half, and every time I drop her off at the lodge from Sunday dinner, for example, I'm a little bit more aware that I'm not just gonna, bye Mom, you know. I'm gonna go around and help her at least get to the handrail, or at least get her inside, or, you know, whatever. So I'm, if we can have some education pieces of some kind, maybe on our website, that's not gonna incur any cost, whatever, because then if there's something that's gonna incur cost, then we've got to sort of find the money to do it.
I mean, a little bit of awareness goes a long way.
Yeah. Councillor Creed.
I wonder, might be one thing that we could do is at least take to the various lodges or resident seniors facilities a notice and just put it on their bulletin boards, you know, to tell us staff, you know, that this is that we've declared this is Fall Prevention Month, and to be a little cognizant of making sure that the seniors are careful. I know they always do.
I put a little maybe bullet points.
There's just some points, I'm trying
Things
to
to
think
help
of what we
them.
can do, because you said, and I fully agree, we got to do something if we're going to declare it.
I totally agree.
Councillor Smith.
I was just gonna say, once again, I appreciate what the mayor says, you know, and things like that, but this was discussed again at the CCW.
Can I have a motion, please? Councillor
I
Cronin.
already made that motion, I believe.
Oh, so you did.
Oh, that's right, Councillor Court, I'm sorry, Councillor Court made the motion. I'm gonna call a question, all in favor? So moved, thank you.
What was the motion?
To
To
accept.
declare,
Declared November as
yes,
senior
Fall
fall prevention.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is some FCSS recommendations. And I knew that FCSS had recommended in support of the against racism and discrimination, and we've dealt with that. So FCSS recommendation number 2 is to form a mayor's youth council. It's there in front of us. The chair will entertain a motion in that regard pursuant to the FCSS recommendation. Then we'll have some discussion. So moved by Councillor Cronin. Any discussions on the recommendation from FCSS and moved by Councillor Cronin for the formation of a mayor's youth council, ages 13 to 18, to choose topics relevant to youth, and have some discussions to promote and give a voice to the youth in the community regarding issues that might be of concern to them. Discussion, Councillor Cronin.
I think that's a very good thing, moving forward. On our Economic Development Committee, we already started to engage the youth in our town regarding the goals and desire of the youth. And I really think it is an important voice that we cannot ignore, and I have a lot of bright ideas that we could surely listen to and see what we can move forward from those discussions. I like that, and I will totally support it.
Okay. Any further discussion, Councillor Dow?
I'll make a motion that we accept.
We got the motion here with Councillor Cronin. We got the,
That's fine.
Councillor Creed.
Yeah, I fully support the concept of involving youth in council. I just have some questions on maybe how what council might be chosen and what kind of a form they would
The format, you think?
have, would they meet and would they meet with the mayor on a regular basis? I'm just, on what form this would take, that I'm just, if do we have any knowledge of how that, I see there's some websites, I didn't look at
There
them.
are many youth council already happening in many cities.
Councillor Court.
I would just recommend that you work with the junior high and high school social studies departments on this, because you deal with this all. This is all part of the curriculum.
Okay.
So they could probably come up with some ideas with their students and what they would like.
And I know they participated quite well when we...
And this would just go back to FCSS as approving their recommendation, and then we can address the details moving forward. I'll call a question. All in favor of the recommendation for formation of Mayor's Youth Council carries. That motion carries. Financial report, any questions? Councillor Dell?
I have some comments. I'd like to make one recommendation on the balance sheet, that we put the current month and the previous month there to give us some comparisons. The next question is, are our taxes receivable all collectible?
Yeah.
Are they collectible?
Are they all collectible?
Yes, all taxes are always collectible.
But some
whether it
will
be in
be-
property or dollars.
Sometime,
At
eventually.
some point, yes.
But
Councillor
And then,
Cronin.
I've got,
Oh, sorry.
our accounts payable all current?
Are payables current? Yes.
And what is the deferred revenue?
Deferred revenue
The taxes.
is our, sorry, I'm just.
grants,
looking here.
possibly?
That would be,
Is that
the
the grants?
breakdown of it, I can tell you in just one sec here.
Is that for projects that are not completed, maybe?
Deferred revenue was grants and.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Sorry, I've got it here somewhere.
Some projects that are finished?
I'm sorry, I just went over this afternoon. Yeah, deferred grant revenue from year end and our tax prepayments. So our, we have
You got too
on
much,
our,
too much of tax prepayments then, haven't you? Or three?
by now we would have August and September and October
Right.
actually would have in
Okay.
there, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, Councilor, it's just gonna come.
All right. Committee and other reports. Town council
Don't you need a
motion.
motion to accept that financial report?
Are you going to move that?
I will.
Okay, so moved. Any discussion on the motion to accept? I'll call a question. All in favor? Carries, thank you. And so thank you, Councillor, for reminding me. So then we'll look at the town council motion list. If there's any questions or concerns, please bring them to the attention of council and/or administration. I've gone over it. I'm seeing here that moving forward with the Civic Center design, and this would be upstairs, assigned to Don Nelson to remodel and paint multipurpose room and install the lift. We have grant application for the lift, and we're getting close to hoping that we're going to see that grant given to us. Marion, do you just want to kind of update council on where we're at?
We were supposed to have heard by October. If we don't hear anything, if they don't give us a response by the end of October, we're just going to move forward with the expenditure and hope that if the grant approval comes, they'll accept our expense.
It seems to me they're very late with all the grants because with South Grove, we haven't seen no money yet.
We do have money in the budget. We were just hoping to not have, that we could do some grants and we wouldn't have to expend it. So
Yeah.
if, we just don't want to keep it too much longer, so
Yeah.
we'll move forward because that's all we're waiting on.
Councillor Creed?
Yeah, just like to have a report, updated report on repair connection on First Street East Sewer. I know it's farther ahead than what is
It's
reported.
done. It's
Is it
complete.
Yeah,
complete?
I'll let Jeff speak to just when
complete.
there was one left or two
Oh,
left.
one
We put this
one
together.
Yeah,
connection.
there's still one left, and the reason was it was the one that we couldn't camera initially, and so they did that work, I believe, either Friday, yeah, I guess we're only the first day back there. So it would have been Friday, and talked to Bart today, and they'll probably dig on that right away, and that'll be the last one.
There's just one more to do, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
We didn't have any camera work on it to see kind of where we needed to go.
But they've now allowed us to do that kind of work.
Yeah, so that'll be finished.
Okay, so the next item there in front of us is the bylaw animal control report, there for your perusal.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just on the town council and on the, just for your information, I'm meeting with Orsk again on Thursday over what we talked about last the increasing cost.
Yeah.
And I'll report back to that on the next council meeting. So we have a special meeting on Thursday on that.
Now,
I appreciated the town of Vulcan letter. I think is bang on. I think sometime you have to do reviews of how you allocate your funding.
Several towns have made that comment, and I believe the message they got last month, we'll see what rolls with them on Thursday.
I think sometimes it takes courage. It's not very easy to go that route, but I think you can learn a lot from a review, and that's true of any organization.
well, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to have the same results you're getting, right?
Well, you're not moving in the right direction, are you?
Okay.
Just
Councillor
one more
Smith.
thing. I know you talked about like committee assignments and things like that. Has there been any changes to those?
I have them ready to present and
Next week or whatever.
well, they'll be ready because we have to, by law, have our reorganizational meeting in October annually. And we get a new deputy mayor, we get new committee assignments. I have those ready. Anyone that would like to know, I don't know that I need to take time to go over them right now. So moving forward, we have some pieces of correspondence. I'm not sure that there's anything there, but if anyone has anything to bring up, please do so now. The confidential item has to do with the CAO evaluation. I need that. I have received one, and I need that so that if I can have them all in, they can be in a collated form, Marion, for the next meeting. But I think possibly what we could do as part of our next meeting would maybe have council in an in-camera session go over them just a little bit, as we typically do. Councillor Cronin.
Marion, would it be possible to send us a template so that we can type it right there instead of doing on pencil? Okay, I prefer to do it that way. Thank you.
Councillor Smith, you had a question?
No.
If anyone would like their proposed committee assignments, I can take care of that as soon as,
Why don't you give it to us?
but I need a motion, please.
Didn't Councillor Cronin want that email?
It's a template, you can do it
Yeah, why don't-
on a template, it's so much easier.
Marion, yes, I think I would like that too. That allows me to just type it out and send it right back to you.
Not enough room on the lines for my crayons, so.
But I do need them in about 10 days so that they can be part of our October 23rd meeting.
I have it ready.
I'll move.
Councillor Smith moves to adjourn. We are adjourned. Okay, here's committee assignments if anyone would like to know. I'll go down the list that I've got here. Library Board, Councillor Edmonds. Handy Bus, Councillor Dow. FCSS Edmonds. Economic Development and Tourism, Councillor Smith. Committee, Emergency Management Committee is the mayor and Councillor Edmonds. Communities in Bloom, Councillor Creed. Historical Society, Councillor Edmonds. Municipal Subdivision and Development Authority, Edmonds and Court. Citizen of the Year, the mayor.
17.
Alberta Southwest, I'm going to change that to Community Futures LR. If we finally get there, that will be myself. South Crow, Maggie Cronin. Chinook Foundation, DD and TC, that's Dave Dowell and Tim Court. Fire is Councillors Cronin and Creed. And of course it's EMS, but we only do fire anymore. Chief Mountain Solid Waste, Cronin. Ag Society, Smith. Intermunicipal Development Plan, that's with the county, that's Councillor Court and myself. Parks is Councillor Court. And Airport is Councillor Creed, and the budget is Dow, Cronin, and Creed. Budget and Finance is Dow, Cronin, and Creed.
Who's on library, sorry?
Library is Councillor Edmonds. Okay.